Hello, I'm Ellen Koronet of L&K Creative, working with BioElectric Shield on two quizzes that we've done since 2016 with thousands of people. I'm here today to give you a little bit of insight into what we're finding from all of this really interesting information that we've been gathering. Why are so many people seeking EMF protection? This is one of the questions we're going to be answering. We've interviewed over 25,000 people since 2016, and they are demonstrating a consistent need for EMF energy protection. Many people of all ages are looking for a way to minimize the impact of being exposed all the time to electronics and to all of these things that are running around in our environment, whether they live and work in the cities or in the suburbs or way out in small town and rural areas. BioElectric Shield has been offering these two free quizzes to identify how much EMF, electromagnetic field radiation protection, and energy protection is needed. So the EMF quiz measures how much exposure people have to EMF radiation, and the HSP quiz stands for highly sensitive person, and it measures how sensitive an individual is to both EMF radiation and that negative energy that's unwittingly shared by people. So both of these quizzes are fully researched and designed by yours truly with 39 years in the industry. I'm a social scientist and I used highly qualified techniques, and we're constantly taking a really good look at how people are answering and who we are interviewing to get this great insight and expertise on energy exposure and sensitivity. EMF exposure and sensitivity to the negative energy around us are definitely on the rise. That's one of the things we've absolutely been noticing. And they have a noticeable unpleasant consequences and are exacerbated by our own habits. But the good news is we can change these. So each quiz provides a low, a medium, or a high score. High score for EMF exposure is considered to be 67% or more of the highest possible score. And in the past 3 years, we've definitely seen these numbers going up. So just about everyone who takes this quiz is at least a moderate level of exposure, which makes sense considering we're usually taking the quiz on a computer. However, if you'll notice from 2019, the rates of the highest score have gone up to over a quarter in this past year of the people taking the quiz got the highest scores. So this has definitely been on the rise, something to keep watching for. What contributes to the EMF radiation exposure score is a lot of different factors, and they are very clearly correlated. So if you have one risk factor, you're likely to have some others. BioElectric Shield has its own findings and extensive industry research, which you can find at bioinitiative.org. And this will show you that some of the most significant offenders include urban living, 5G noticed in the area, and air travel. So those are some of the key measures we've been tracking in these quizzes. However, it's not just for big cities and their suburbs where people are getting overloaded with EMF. What we're seeing is that while urban and suburban residents do experience the highest levels of EMF exposure, suburban and rural exposure is also on the rise, with 5G towers and smart meters increasing everywhere. By far, some of the most damaging of the EMF overload. A smart meter is a meter on the side of your house that can be read by the meter reader as he's driving, or he or she is driving by in their car. And so that is leaving us exposed to a lot more radiation than we had previously. And what we've seen in the trend over the past 3 years that are shown here is that in the urban areas, it's not surprising that people, for example, noticed 5G was going up. 5G towers were going up, and they've noticed them. In 2019, it was still pretty high, but it's gone up exponentially since then. But even in the suburbs, and then when you get to the small town and rural areas, we still see the number of 5G towers being noticed in the area going up significantly. The impact of this exposure is becoming more noticeable. In 2021, 60% of these quiz takers reported mysterious symptoms that they are attempted to diagnose but were unable to get diagnosed, compared to 52% in 2019. So in 3 years, even though that number may not sound like a lot, it's pretty significant that we've gone from just a little over half to inching towards 2/3 of people taking the quiz have these symptoms. And in the next video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how that's age-related or not. Because as you age, of course, you're going to notice more and more symptoms. But what we're finding is that the people with the highest scores for EMF exposure are having more trouble with things like ADD, ADHD, and chronic fatigue syndrome and mysterious symptoms. So it's not completely age-related. It's also related to the exposure. And even more alarming, we've asked if they've been diagnosed or they have noticed that they have ADD or ADHD. And even those who say they don't think they do, they still have difficulty focusing at least some of the time. So this is another thing that's beginning to creep into our world more and more. Now, the good news is, as I mentioned before, your habits can actually exacerbate or alleviate the negative impact of EMF radiation. In this little chart here, we've found that almost everyone, 8 out of 10 people, leave their Wi-Fi on 24/7, and only a small proportion turn it off at night or only leave it on when they're using it. So that is a factor that we could easily mitigate a little bit by put a timer on your electricity, and the Wi-Fi will go off at night and come back in the morning. These and other tips are on BioElectric Shield's website. You can always find a lot of great information there. The other thing that we've definitely seen a correlation with is that those who spend 6 or more hours a day on screens are much more likely to experience symptoms from EMF radiation exposure, and carrying it near your body is known as proximity. This has led to even chronic conditions such as heart disease. And again, this is all from BioElectric Shield's body of research that's on their website. In addition to this quiz now, I've mentioned the second one, which is the HSP quiz. And what we've measured there is how sensitive people are to all kinds of things in their environment besides just the computer and the electricity. And what we found is that people who take this quiz tend to score in the moderate or high range of HSP sensitivity, highly sensitive person sensitivity. So you'll see there's a lot of people who score in the moderate range and a lot of people who score in the high range. These are self-selected people who come to the quiz because they feel, I might be an HSP. I want to know a little more about it. And what I love about this quiz that we've designed together is that with Anna Maria now, who is an expert in this area, is that it really gives a lot more insight into the subtle energy sensitivities. It breaks it down into 5 subtypes. And this has not been done anywhere else that I've found on the internet. So you'll want to go check that out. And what we've seen here is that the most common aspects of HSP, of living with HSP, is that people tend to agree that they really need alone time to recharge, which is something that's often related to introspective, being an introvert, not introspective, an introvert. But here we're going into a lot more of a lot more nuance around just being an introvert. So they need alone time to recharge. They can't stand to witness or tolerate bullying. They stand for truth and justice, and they seem to think deeply about things. So these are all indications that people are kind of in general an HSP. And then you'll learn more about the subtypes when you take the quiz. So what people notice about EMF radiation issues is that this has been kind of getting worse over the past 5 or 10 years. Over 2/3 now say they notice feeling a little or much worse than they did 5 years ago. In addition, a self-reported increase in feeling strong or moderate reactions when they get into a dense area, such as where there's a lot of restaurants and so on, is up from 46% in 2020 to 52% in 2021. So again, we see this gradual increase. Many have been seeking EMF protection, but surprisingly, a large percentage haven't put the pieces together to figure out that technology use, Wi-Fi, smart meters, and 5G have anything to do with feeling bad and feeling funny when they get to these areas. Sometimes when you take these quizzes, it gives you a little bit of something to think about, maybe some insight that you may not have noticed before. So how your life can improve. For more information about electrosmog and some simple action steps you can take on your own, check out the recent blog post that's on the EMF, that's on the BioElectric Shield website. It's called Electrosmog, Learn How to Protect Yourself. And then you can also take these 2 quizzes there, and they will tell you about your exposure. You will receive a recommended level for your own personal bioelectric shield, which I'm wearing one and I love it. At the end of the quiz, our mission is to protect you with the most reliable and strong personal energy protection on the planet. Customers worldwide have endorsed this protection since the beginnings in 1990. And you'll see some testimonials, and you can really stop the energy drain, revitalize, restore, and refocus. So thank you for being with me. Also, when you take the quiz, you get 15% off your order right away. So thank you for being here with me today, and I'll see you on the next one.